There's a hidden code, one that most men don't even know exists, and yet, it runs silently, beneath almost every interaction they have with women. It's not written down, you won't find it in any dating book, and no one's going to come right out and tell you, but it's there, and if you don't see it, that it will control you. This code is emotional, invisible, and women use it, consciously or unconsciously, to test you, to shape how you feel about yourself, to make you chase their approval, that while slowly questioning your own worth. You see, it's not about love, it's about power. There's a moment in every man's life, that when he finds himself asking, what did I do wrong? Why did she pull away? Why do I feel like I'm never enough, no matter how much I give? And that's the trap. The more you try to please, the more you lose yourself, the more you explain, the more confused you become. You think you're building connection, but what's actually happening, is control, disguised as closeness. Because here's the truth no one tells you, many of the emotional games women play are not about bonding, they're about testing your strength, testing your self-worth, testing how much of your identity depends on them. But when a man finally wakes up, when he sees through the code, everything changes. He no longer asks, what did I do wrong? Because now he knows, it was never about doing something wrong, it was about handing away his power, in tiny, unnoticed ways. The awakening is silent, no big speech, no drama, no anger. He just stops chasing, stops explaining, stops asking for permission to feel worthy, and that silence, that calm, grounded, masculine stillness, it terrifies her, because it means she no longer controls the emotional rhythm. She can't pull him back in with guilt, or tears, or withdrawal. He's not reacting, he's just present, observing, centered. This isn't revenge, it's not about playing games. It's about reclaiming your inner compass, where your emotions aren't dictated by her moods, her silence, or her affection. And when a man reaches this place, he becomes untouchable, not because he's cold, but because he finally knows who he is, without needing her to confirm it. This is the beginning of something powerful, the moment you stop playing the emotional chess match, and start living by your own rules. So if you've ever felt like you were dancing to a tune you didn't choose, if you've ever felt unseen, unheard, constantly trying to do better to earn love, let this be your wake-up call. There's nothing wrong with you, you were just caught in a code you didn't understand. But now you do, and that changes everything. There's a lie, a quiet one, that most men were taught growing up, an unspoken rule: if you want to be loved, you have to be perfect. Perfect in how you speak, perfect in your career, perfect in your confidence, your body, your timing. Only then, they told you, you'll finally be worthy of love. But here's the truth, women don't want your perfection, they want your presence. Let that sink in, because presence is something different. It's not about what you say, it's about who you are, when you're still, when you're not chasing, not proving, not asking to be chosen. When you sit across from her, calm, grounded, already whole, you see, presence is rare, and because it's rare, it's powerful. Let me ask you this, when was the last time you didn't try to impress someone? When was the last time you let your energy speak for you? Because women can feel it, they always do. They can tell when your body's there, but your soul isn't. They feel the hunger, the tension, the quiet fear of not being enough. And that fear creates distance. She might smile, she might nod, but deep down, she feels it, that absence, that void. And here's what most men never learn: you don't close that gap by doing more. You close it by being more still, because when a man truly shows up, not to fix, not to prove, but to witness. Something changes. She feels safe, not because you're solving her pain, but because you're no longer running from your own silence. You don't flinch. You don't chase. You don't lose yourself in her storm. You remain present. That kind of presence, it's magnetic, it's masculine, it's unforgettable. But most men, we trade presence for performance. We hustle, we please, we perform, and in doing so, we abandon our greatest strength, our peace. So ask yourself, when was the last time you trusted your stillness? More than your strategy, when was the last time you led without pursuit? Because presence doesn't require perfection, it only asks for self-trust. And when a man trusts himself, without applause, without chasing, he becomes unforgettable, not because he's loud, but because in a world full of noise, he became the quiet center she didn't know she needed. So stop chasing the ideal. Stop trying to earn what should already be yours. The real test isn't in how much you impress, it's in whether you can stay rooted, even when there's nothing left to prove, because that's where your power lives. There comes a moment in every man's life, a quiet breaking point, when he realizes silence isn't weakness, it's not running away, it's not passivity, it's power, real power, not the kind that shouts to be heard, but the kind that makes others lean in, just to understand what you're not saying, the kind that doesn't beg to be respected, because it already commands it. Most men were taught to react, to explain, to defend, to speak just to be seen as strong. But true strength speaks only when necessary, and more often than not, it speaks through stillness. When a man chooses silence, not out of fear, but out of clarity, something shifts. She can't read you anymore. She can't push your emotional buttons like she used to, and that unsettles her, not because she's evil, but because the emotional rhythm she once controlled is now gone. You're not punishing her, you're not playing games, you're simply done bleeding your energy. For someone who doesn't value the cost, your silence, it becomes a mirror she can't escape, because now, she only sees herself, her noise, her patterns, her manipulations, and in that silence, she meets the truth. Let's be clear, silence isn't a coward's exit, it's not bottling things up, it's not avoidance, it's emotional mastery, it's the deep, masculine discipline that says, you don't get to hijack my nervous system today. Because when a man no longer reacts, he no longer bleeds emotionally, he stops giving away power, through arguments, justifications, or apologies that were never heard anyway, and in that space, he becomes dangerous, not violent, not cruel, but unshakable. A man rooted in that kind of stillness is a man no one can manipulate, because he's no longer emotionally starving, he's already full. And here's the twist. She feels it, she notices the shift, she senses the distance. That's no longer powered by anger, but by peace, and that peace, it terrifies her more than your words ever could, because you're no longer trying to win her. You've already won yourself, and that is the beginning of real power. So let me ask you, what would happen if you stopped reacting, if you chose silence over defense, if your stillness wasn't emptiness, but strength, presence, and unwavering self-respect? Would she reflect? Would she panic? Would she finally realize she can't shake your core? Maybe, maybe not. But here's what matters most, you will know peace. You will no longer hand out your energy like it's cheap. You'll reclaim the most sacred space a man owns, his inner calm, and from that place, you don't chase respect, you command it. That's the power of silence, not to control others, but to finally stand in control of yourself. Let me ask you something. Have you ever walked into a room and immediately felt the weight of someone's presence before they even said a word? That's energy, not confidence, not charisma, energy. and whether you realize it or not, your energy is your frame. It's not your looks, not your bank account, not the car you drive or the brand on your wrist. It's the invisible signal, the silent frequency that tells the world how to treat you. Here's the truth most men avoid: people, especially women, don't respond to your words. They respond to your essence, what you carry, what you radiate. If your energy says, "Please like me, please stay, I'll tolerate anything, just don't leave," then guess what? You've already lost, because they'll sense it, and they'll test it. They'll slowly chip away at your peace, because deep down, they know you won't walk away, and that's not love, that's weakness disguised as hope. This isn't about being macho, it's not about dominance, it's about self-respect, it's about guarding your center like it's sacred, because it is. Weak energy leaks, it apologizes unnecessarily, it over-explains, it begs for connection, while betraying itself in the process. But strong energy, that's different. A man with strong energy enters quietly, and commands the room without a single word. He doesn't try. He doesn't chase, he simply is, because he knows where he stands, he knows what's sacred, and he walks away the moment peace is compromised. That man doesn't broadcast his standards, he lives them, and because of that, people rise to meet him. Or they fall away. Here's what most men never learn: every time you tolerate disrespect, every time you explain yourself to someone who's not listening, every time you betray your boundary just to be liked, you teach the world that your energy is cheap, and if you don't value it, no one else will, especially not the women in your life. Because here's the cold, sharp truth: a woman cannot love a man she doesn't respect. And she cannot respect a man who won't protect his peace. But the man who does, the man who stays grounded in a storm, who doesn't flinch when tested, who doesn't need chaos to feel alive, that man becomes untouchable, not cold, not arrogant, just centered. He doesn't fear losing her, he fears losing himself, and that's why she remembers him, because he didn't perform, he didn't beg, he stood still, while the world tried to shake him. So ask yourself, what kind of energy do you carry? Is it the energy of a man chasing approval, or the calm, unshakable presence of a man who has already chosen himself? Because the world, it will always try to define you, to bend you, to test you, but when you become the man who cannot be moved, who no longer bargains with his worth, you become rare, and in a world of noise, you become the silence that commands respect. That is why your energy isn't just part of the game. It is the game, it's not decoration, it's your frame. Let them feel it. Let me tell you something real. There comes a moment in every man's life, a sacred moment, when he finally decides, I don't owe anyone an explanation. Not for who he is, not for what he feels, not for choosing peace over their chaos. You see, we're raised to believe that if we just explain ourselves well enough, she'll understand, she'll soften, she'll stop twisting your truth into a weapon. But here's the cold truth: she heard you the first time, she understood you perfectly, but she wasn't listening to understand, she was listening to maintain control. And when a woman no longer respects a man, she stops hearing his heart and starts studying his weaknesses. So you explain, again, and again, and each time you do, you're not creating clarity, you're giving her leverage, you're bleeding yourself out. One sentence at a time. It looks like clarification, but it feels like pleading, and pleading, it's the language of a man who's forgotten his worth. It says, please validate me. Please tell me I'm good enough. Please don't leave. But what if I told you that every time you explain yourself to someone who's already made up their mind, you're not building trust, you're giving away your spine, you're negotiating your peace for someone else's comfort? And the more you explain, the colder she becomes, not because she hates you, but because she can sense. You don't even stand with yourself. But then something shifts, a man awakens. He stops explaining, not to punish, not to manipulate, but because he's realized, his peace is worth more than her approval. And that silence, it doesn't create distance, it creates presence. She begins to feel something missing, not your body, not your voice, but your presence, that unshakable calm that once bent to her storms, now rooted, now gone. And that absence, it haunts her, because for the first time, she's not in charge of your nervous system. She sighs. You don't chase, she withdraws. You don't react, you're just still, not out of anger, not out of ego, but out of clarity. You're not leaving her to hurt her, you're choosing yourself to heal. Because here's the truth no one told you growing up: you don't need to prove your love to someone who won't even hold space for your truth. You don't need to stay in rooms where your soul is gasping for air, just to avoid being alone. You don't owe an explanation for walking away from what drains you. So when you go silent, when you disappear with grace, let the world call it whatever it wants, you'll know what it is. It's not abandonment, it's self-respect. You're not leaving her behind, you're rising above the need to be understood by someone who never planned to. You're choosing clarity over confusion, dignity over dysfunction, silence over shouting, because not every woman deserves your explanation. But you always deserve your peace. Not everyone deserves the best of you. Not everyone earns access to the calm, focused, powerful version of the man you're becoming. As men, we've been taught since we were boys that staying, enduring, fixing is strength, that loyalty means never walking away, that giving more, explaining again, and holding on tighter makes us good men. But what if that belief is the very thing that's been breaking you? Let me offer you a different truth. There is more power in walking away than in staying to be slowly broken down. Withdrawal isn't weakness, it's wisdom. It's a man quietly saying, my energy is sacred. My peace is not negotiable. My time is not a donation. You don't need to raise your voice. You don't need to argue or beg to be seen. You simply step back, not to punish, not to play games, but because you finally realized you matter too. And here's the truth most men never hear. Sometimes, the most masculine act is silence, stillness, absence. The man who knows when to walk away is a man who has learned to protect his energy from emotional chaos. That kind of man, he's dangerous, not because he's aggressive, but because he's untouchable, no longer reactive, no longer starving for approval, no longer accessible on demand. He becomes a mystery, a presence that once felt common, now deeply missed. She may not say it, but she feels it, because she's lost access to something she once controlled. And that absence is louder than any confrontation. But make no mistake, this isn't about revenge. This is about no longer betraying yourself to stay in places that drain you. No more over explaining, no more negotiating basic respect, no more bleeding energy just to prove your worth. Some women will only begin to value your presence when they finally feel the weight of your silence, because silence from a man who has nothing left to prove, that silence carries power, dignity, finality. Let's be honest, you can't keep giving your best to people who treat it like an option. You can't keep sacrificing your peace just to avoid being alone. And you can't keep setting yourself on fire to keep someone else warm. Withdrawal is not giving up, it's choosing yourself over dysfunction. It's saying, I love deeply, but I love myself enough to leave. I forgive you, but I don't owe you access. I'm here for connection, not chaos. This is the line most men need to draw. because not every battle deserves your sword, not every woman deserves your heart, and not every situation deserves your presence. So if you feel the urge to explain yourself one more time, don't. Just walk, quietly, powerfully, with clarity, because sometimes, the strongest thing a man can do, is to never look back. You don't owe them closure, you owe yourself peace. Let me tell you something that might save you years of confusion. You were not born to orbit around a woman's world, you were born to build your own, and the moment you forget that, the moment you start chasing her attention, bending your direction to match her moods, you lose yourself. You silence your mission just to stay close, you trade your clarity for closeness, and slowly, without even realizing it, you become invisible. Here's the brutal truth most men learn too late: a man without direction will be resented. She might say she wants your time, your attention, your energy, but what truly captivates her is a man who's rooted in something deeper, a man with a mission, a man who wakes up with purpose, who walks with vision, who doesn't shake just because she goes cold. He doesn't need her affection to feel like a man. He's not moved by silence. He's not shaken by rejection. Because he's grounded in something larger than himself. His compass is not her, it's his calling, his discipline, his craft, his code, and that kind of man, he becomes rare, and rare men don't chase, they attract. Let me ask you something: how much of your energy, right now, is being used to impress her, to wonder what she's thinking, to decode her silence, while you ignore your own? And how much of that same energy could be fueling your mission, your body, your mind, your vision? Because when you stop chasing women and start chasing mastery, you attract women who are actually worth keeping. The right woman doesn't want to be your purpose. She wants to join a man who already has one. She wants to walk beside a man who's building something, a man who doesn't get lost in love, but brings his full self into it. So hear me on this: your mission is your compass. When you follow it, you move with force. When you abandon it, you drift, and women can feel that drift, even before you do, and if she becomes the center of your world, she will lose respect for you, not out of malice, but because she no longer feels your fire. So stop orbiting, start building, and let the gravitational pull of your purpose do the rest, because the man on a mission doesn't beg for love, he commands it, not through noise, but through presence, through direction, through self-mastery. That is what she remembers. That is what the world respects. So build your kingdom, and let the right queen find her way to you. Let me ask you something: can you love deeply and still walk away when your peace is threatened? Because that, right there, is the mark of a man who has mastered emotional detachment. Now don't confuse this with being cold or indifferent. Emotional detachment isn't about shutting down, it's about showing up, fully, honestly, but without losing yourself in someone else's storm. You see, we've been taught that real love means staying no matter what, that if you leave, you didn't care enough, you gave up. But here's the truth: sometimes the strongest act of love is the one that says, I love you, but I won't abandon myself for you. Emotional detachment isn't the absence of feeling, it's the presence of discipline, the ability to feel everything, the joy, the tension, the longing, and still respond with clarity. Not impulse. That means, you can forgive her, and still leave, you can care, and still say, this no longer honors my values. That's not detachment from love, that's devotion to self-respect, and when a man steps into that, he becomes unshakable. He no longer fears being alone, he doesn't need her love to survive, he wants it, he cherishes it, but his worth, it's not up for negotiation. And when that shift happens, she feels it, that invisible grip she once had, gone. No more guilt trips, no more passive-aggressive silence. No more pushing buttons to provoke a reaction, because you're no longer reacting, you're responding, calmly, consciously, with conviction, that rattles her, not because you're trying to punish her, but because you're finally protecting you. You've drawn a line, quietly, without anger, and that line, it's called a boundary. A man who is emotionally detached says, I can love you and still walk if it costs me my peace. I can give you everything except my self-respect. He doesn't explain his value, he doesn't debate his worth, he simply walks, not out of pride, but out of clarity, and when you reach that place, the game ends. You're no longer trapped in her emotional roller coaster. You've stepped off, feet on solid ground, eyes forward, and from that place, you don't beg for love, you don't compete for space, you become the space, unshakable, unreachable, free. So let me ask you again, can you detach? Not from love, but from the need for love to define you, because when you can, you don't lose her, you finally find you. Let me ask you something. What if everything you were taught about love was backwards? What if chasing her was the exact thing that made her lose respect for you? Because for too long, men have been told the same script, she's the prize. You just have to earn her. Earn her with your money, with your time, with your effort, with your peace. But here's the truth that no one ever told you. You are the prize, not because of your bank account, not because of your biceps, but because of the man you're becoming. When no one's watching, society won't celebrate this. They'll say, be a gentleman. Win her over. Convince her you're worth it. But why should you have to convince someone of your worth? When did your value become negotiable? See, the moment you put her on a pedestal, you start shrinking yourself just to fit into her life. You lose your edge, you lower your standards, you tolerate behavior that disrespects your peace, just to keep her around, and that is how men disappear into relationships that kill their spirit. You don't have to earn your place at her table. You build your own, and the right woman, she doesn't choose you like she's doing you a favor, she joins you, because she sees the strength of a man who doesn't beg. You are the prize when you live with purpose, keep your word, set standards and honor them, say no without guilt, choose from wholeness, not loneliness. And yes, some women will call that arrogant, but what they're really afraid of is a man they can't control emotionally, a man who won't flinch at withdrawal, who doesn't collapse at rejection, who knows his worth without her applause. That kind of man, he's not cold, he's not cruel, he's just untouchable. Because he doesn't chase, he attracts, and when you finally understand this, when you stop orbiting her world and start building your own, everything changes. You stop explaining, you stop performing, you stop needing love to validate your existence. You are not a placeholder, you are not a backup plan, you are not someone's emotional rehab project. You are the foundation, you are the frame, you are the fire. And when you live from that truth, you don't convince her of your worth, you embody it, and the ones who can't see it, they were never meant to sit at your table. Let me ask you something. Have you ever noticed this? The man who's calm, the man who's grounded, the man who isn't in a rush, that man holds the most power in the room. You see, most relationships today are driven by fear, fear of being alone, fear of being left behind, fear of missing the one. And that fear creates urgency, so you rush the connection, you overthink every text, you try to win her attention, her affection, her approval, before you even ask yourself, is she even right for me? But here's the truth no one teaches you: when you don't need something fast, you hold all the power, because the moment you enter with neediness, you lose your center, and when a man isn't centered, he becomes reactive, he becomes easy to manipulate. afraid to walk away, but a man who carries the energy of, I'm okay either way. That man is dangerous, in the best way possible. He doesn't chase, he doesn't cling, and he doesn't confuse urgency with connection. He lives by this quiet truth: I don't need this right now, because I am already whole. He's not looking to be completed, he's looking to be complemented. That difference changes everything, and trust me, women feel this energy immediately. They know the man who's full versus the one who's just looking to be filled. Let me tell you something: the man who moves slowly, with calm and patience, he becomes a mystery, he becomes rare. In a world that's rushing, his stillness becomes sacred. So ask yourself, can you sit in the unknown without forcing it? Can you delay gratification without becoming restless? Can you be with her without needing constant validation? Because if you can, you are mastering the art of emotional control. You're not chasing, you're not reacting, you're choosing wisely. You stop negotiating your values just to be liked. You stop chasing chemistry at the cost of peace. You stop confusing attention with intimacy. You become selective, still, clear, and that's when the right women take notice. Not the ones who thrive on chaos, but the ones who recognize depth and rise to meet it. So know, the power of not needing things fast isn't weakness. It's not a game, it's clarity, it's strength, it's freedom. Because when you're no longer desperate for love, you attract love that isn't desperate. You stop fearing the loss of her, because you've stopped losing yourself. And that, my brother, that's the shift. You no longer move from emptiness, you move from wholeness. Take your time, breathe, stand still. Because the man who waits wisely chooses from strength. There comes a moment in every man's life, a sacred moment, when he stops chasing and starts remembering who he is, when he no longer asks, will she stay? But instead asks, will I stay loyal to myself? This is the turning point, the quiet awakening, the moment when a man finally understands, I am the reward, not because of what I own, not because of how much I impress, but because of the man I've chosen to become, day by day, battle by battle, standard by standard. You see, the world teaches men to compete, to prove, to perform, but that version of masculinity, it's broken, it's hollow. It trains men to abandon their soul, just to be chosen. But a man who lives like the prize, he builds his own table, he doesn't beg for a seat at hers, he stops waiting to be picked, and starts picking himself. And when he does that, everything changes. Women notice, they feel the difference, because he's no longer bendable, no longer moldable, no longer afraid to walk away if peace is threatened. He doesn't fear losing her, he fears losing himself. And that sacred fear, the fear of self-betrayal, that's what builds kings. Because when you fear the cost of compromising your soul, you start living in truth, your decisions sharpen, your energy deepens, your silence speaks, and your presence commands respect. You no longer chase love, you attract alignment. You attract women who rise to meet your values, not play with your boundaries. Now listen carefully, some women who once overlooked you, they might come back, but you're no longer the man who needs to be seen. To feel real, you've seen yourself, in the quiet, in the solitude, in that sacred decision, to stop shrinking for love. Now you choose, you draw boundaries, you speak less, move wiser, love deeper, and walk away faster, when your value is dismissed. This is your rebirth, not loud, not dramatic, but undeniably powerful. So if you take only one truth from this message, let it be this: stop asking to be loved. In rooms that ignore your worth, stop proving yourself to people who only respond to your weakness, and stop apologizing. For the man you're becoming, draw your line, in peace, in stillness, in unwavering strength. Walk away from anything that makes you forget your power, and keep walking toward the man you were always meant to be, live like the reward, and let the world feel the weight of your sacred absence.